The next area we're going to talk about is on filing systems for your clients. And this section is going to be geared strictly towards your real estate clients. Okay? Why do you need to organize your real estate business? Okay? Keeping track of your clients as they progress through the stages of buying or selling is essential to your success. Attention to detail and diligent follow-up will lead to a referral-based business. And that's what you want, right? You want a business that's based on referrals. You're going to be able to manage your schedule. You'll be able to maintain your client contact information. I'm going to show you how to track clients throughout the closing process, how to build relationships with your clients for that repeat business, and stop feeling overwhelmed. Because as a former real estate agent, I understand how difficult it is to stay organized at the office. And sometimes when you're working with multiple clients, it is extremely overwhelming. So let's eliminate some of that stress. We're going to take the real estate section today and we're going to break it into two areas. We're going to talk about your client file system, and then we're going to talk about your client follow-up system. And these systems will show you how to get more work done in less time with a greater sales volume. Sounds pretty good, huh? All right. As far as your client file system, we're going to break it down into buyers and sellers. And the most useful tool that you can use is what I like calling a 6-section file. And here's a sample of one. That's a buyer's file. Okay? The whole purpose of these files is to make sure that you are organized throughout the entire buying and selling process. In addition, if another agent had to fill in for you because you were unavailable, they could. Because we all know that it's impossible to be available 24/7, 365 days a year. And we all want to take that planned vacation. And why does something always come up the day before we're getting ready to go on vacation, right? But how can we eliminate that stress and know that no matter what, you're going to be able to go? By having a system that's organized, that will allow any other agent to pick up and know exactly where you're at in the process and what needs to be done next. And you're also going to know that that agent who is filling up for you is going to be able to provide the same level of service to your client that you provided to them, right? And you're going to want that for your client. It shouldn't matter who they're talking to. All they want to know is that they're being taken care of. And by implementing this system, I'm going to show you how that'll happen. So we're going to first talk about our buyer, okay, and how important it is to make sure that you're organized during this process. I like to call these files grab and go. My suggestion to you is that you set up about 5 or 6 of these files and you have them ready to go so that when you get that client, all you have to do is grab your file and you know that all the information you need is going to be in one place. All right, the first section is on the inside cover of this file, and I like to call it section 1. And in this section, we're going to be talking about closing information form and the buyer's under contract checklist. Closing information form. Just a sample of what your form can look like. I'm just going to give you a few seconds here to maybe just jot down a quick picture. We're going to be going through each one of these sections in detail so that you're going to know what information you're going to need to help that buyer through the closing process. Just take a few minutes and maybe just jot down a sample of what this form looks like. But again, the key is to customize it so that you know how to use it and then keep it consistent. All right, let's talk about the first item on that form. Critical to do items prior to closing. These are items that you want to make sure that you do the minute that property goes under contract. You want to make sure that the buyer and seller has a copy of the contract, change your MLS status, and schedule the closing. All right? The next piece of information is the property information. Make sure you have it written somewhere on that form. The address, the subdivision, the lot number, the area, and what the combination is, if that's applicable, so that you can have access to that home. But again, keep in mind that as we go through this form, these are just suggested areas. Depending on your company policy and the information that is required by your broker, customize the forms that best meet your needs. Okay, this is just a simple sample to help you get started in the right direction. The next area is client information. You want to make sure you have the name, the address, all the phone numbers, the email address. If you're working with a buyer, then get the seller's name and also get their email address. You want to know who the other client's real estate agent is. So if you're working with a buyer, then make sure you have the seller's agent name, right? The firm, all the phone numbers that are appropriate, the email address, and very important, if that other agent has an assistant, chances are you're going to be talking to that assistant more than you are the other agent. Make sure you have the information for that assistant. That person will become your main contact. Okay, you're going to have lender information on this form. Again, the firm, the contact, the work numbers, mobile, fax, email address, and now the form's starting to change a bit. I've included some boxes on here, and this is where from this point on you're going to start checking things off as they're due. And this is where you're going to want to refer back to the original contract and make sure that every party adheres to the dates that are part of that contract. So have you received the pre-qualification letter? If you have, check it off. How about the loan commitment letter? And when is that due by? Is this an FHA or a VA loan? And have you faxed a copy of the contract to the lender? Homeowner's insurance, contact, and work number. Now, a lot of this information may appear a little elementary to you and you think it's just going to be second nature, but I can guarantee you that if you're working with multiple clients and you've got some closings that are scheduled pretty close together, it's going to be hard to keep track of what you've done for which client. Okay, attorney information. Make sure you write down what the firm is, the contact, again, the assistant. You'll be talking more to the assistant than the actual attorney. The email address. Have you faxed the contract and the information sheet to the attorney? Who's attending the closing? Has the seller information been faxed? Has the deed been prepared? How about all those repair receipts? Have those been faxed to the attorney? And then the inspection receipts. Okay, so again, you're going to check this off as you go along. And it's real important that you do that because then when another agent comes in, they're going to know what's been done and what hasn't if someone has to fill in for you. Okay, title insurance, final walkthrough, when and where. Has the seller been notified, right? If you're dealing with a lot of clients, you may forget to notify the seller. Does the seller have a survey? If they do get a copy of that, does the buyer want a new survey? And have you gotten copies of the covenants for your buyer? Inspection information, the company, the date and time, how much that inspection cost, and the phone numbers. Again, check these items off as they've occurred. Have you notified the seller when the inspection is? Has a report been given to the seller? And what is the date that that report has to be given to the seller according to the contract? Has the buyer been notified? And has the response been given to the buyer? And when is that response due by? Now, is this inspection going to be paid for at the time of the inspection? Closing? Were there repairs that have to be done? Is the buyer going to require a re-inspection? Do they want one? And do you have copies of all the receipts? All right, let's move on to the next section. If there's a septic system, is there going to be an inspection? Well, get the name and the number of the company that's going to be doing that inspection, the date and the time, and the cost. Again, has the report been given to the seller? Does the well need to be treated? And if it does, is a new test going to have to be required? And other inspections, radon, structural, this is where you want to customize that form. Any other inspections that are required on the purchase of that home. Okay, termite inspection, the company, the date and time, and again, the price, the work number, mobile, and the results. Hope you can see that as you progress through this form, it's only on one sheet of paper, but all the information is right there in front of you. You're not thumbing through your folder trying to find it. Okay, is the seller been notified about the termite inspection? Has a report been given to the seller? Does the seller have a contract for termite treatment? And will this inspection be paid for at closing? And again, fax the information to the attorney. The attorney needs to know about all these costs. And don't forget to write down the sales price, closing costs, and how much was that earnest money check. That question will come up. Was this a contingent offer? And if it was, has it been removed? Is there a warranty on the property? Was that part of the contract negotiations? Write down that confirmation number if it is. What's the commission? And personal property. Was there any personal property involved in the negotiations on this contract that you need to make sure when you do that final walkthrough that that personal property is still there? And then at the very end of your form, put critical to do items after closing. These are those items that after we leave that closing table and we are so excited that that property has closed, right? We may tend to forget to do a few things once we get back to the office because what happens? You're working with other clients too. So in this section, you want to put all those critical items that need to be done once that closing happens. You want to change your MLS status, turn a copy of the HUD-1 in, and give a thank you note and a gift to your buyer. Okay, in that section, one of the inside folder of that 6-section file, another list you're going to have is your buyer's under contract list. This is simply a checklist that you're going to want to establish, and these are items that need to be completed once that property goes under contract. Okay, I'm going to give you some time to write these down as well, but just develop your own form. It just has to be simple, and you're going to see how this form closely relates to the form that we just talked about. So, what are the first things you need to do when the property goes under contract, right? You want to turn in the offer to purchase and contract and all the paperwork according to your firm's policy. Don't forget to turn that paperwork in. Ask your buyer if they have a preferred attorney, and if not, provide a recommendation. Now, where are you going to find that recommendation? In your reference file, right, with all those closing attorneys that you've established. Fax and email the contract and information sheet to the attorney. You want to do the same. You want to fax and email the contract to the lender with a copy of the earnest money check, copy of the contract to the buyer. Give the buyer a moving checklist, which we're going to be talking about in Section 2. Set up the inspections. Make sure you set up the home inspection, termite, radon, well, septic. So as you see, if you've gone through this list and you've started checking off items and something happens, there's been a family emergency and you need to go out of town, but this property has just gone under contract, you can turn this file over to that agent that you have that relationship with, and they're going to know exactly what needs to be done next. Okay. Also, once the buyers are under contract, are the sellers providing a 1-year warranty? And if so, who's going to order that warranty? Is it you or is it the other agent? Okay. Attend the home inspection. Who's going to be attending that home inspection? You want to assist the buyers in writing that repair request. Have the buyers email the repair request to you so that you can forward it on to the listing agent. Ensure that all the repair responses are received by the contract date. And follow up with the lender to make sure that the appraisal is completed by the contract date. These items, again, may just seem second nature, but as you're working with multiple clients and your business is growing and growing, it's more difficult to keep track of what you've done for who. Okay, so this takes the guesswork out of it. All you have to do is open up your folder, look at your list, and you know exactly where you're at in the process. Okay, a few more items. You want to inform the attorney if the buyer requests a survey. Give the attorney the buyer's social security number, the lender contact information, and inform the attorney if one party to the purchase is not attending closing. This is an item that tends to get overlooked because if there's a person to the party who is not going to be attending the closing, then the attorney has to issue a power of attorney. And you want to make sure that those documents get signed so that there's no holdup when you get to the closing table. Seller's title insurance company and all receipts that are to be paid at closing. They need to know that. Okay, 2 weeks prior to closing, you want to check on the repairs with the listing agent, make sure those repairs are getting done. Send the buyer an email reminding them of the closing date and time, directions to the attorney, and items that they need to bring. I'm sure you've probably verbalized this to them, but they have a lot going on. So get it in writing, shoot them off a quick email so that they have all that information.